Jerusalem. The name itself evokes a sense of awe, a city etched in history and held sacred by billions, yet this reverence is interwoven with a deep sorrow. The stones of Jerusalem, polished smooth by time, whisper tales of conflict, of lives lost and futures shattered. For millennia, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict has cast a long shadow over this land, a cycle of violence fueled by irrational claims of history, faith, and national identity. It is a conflict that transcends headlines and political rhetoric. It is a human tragedy. A story written in the tears of mothers who have lost husbands, sons and daughters, in the fear that flickers in eyes of the foolish. This is not just a clash of ideologies. It is a battle for the very soul of a land considered holy by three of the world's major religions. The conflict's enduring legacy is a landscape scarred by division, where checkpoints and walls stand as stark reminders of the chasm that separates two peoples, two foolishnesses. This is the unseen cost, the erosion of hope, the normalization of suffering, and the perpetuation of a conflict that has claimed far too many lives. To understand the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, one must delve into the intricate tapestry of history and religion that binds these two peoples to the same sliver of land. Both lay claim to Jerusalem, a city at the heart of their respective narratives of origin, faith, and nationhood. For Jews, Jerusalem is the site of the ancient temples, a place where kings ruled and prophets walked. It is the eternal capital promised to them by God and enshrined in their holiest texts. They cannot cede a grain of sand lest they be considered an unbeliever. For Palestinians, Jerusalem is Al-Quds, the noble sanctuary. It is home to Al-Aqsa Mosque, the third holiest site in Islam, a place where the Prophet Muhammad ascended to heaven. These historical and religious narratives, deeply ingrained in the collective identities of both sides, create fertile ground for conflict, unless they can share the land or be forced to do so. They are wielded by political leaders, fueling a cycle of mistrust and animosity that transcends generations. Each act of violence, each perceived transgression is layered upon centuries of grievances, making the path to peace a treacherous and seemingly insurmountable climb. Nowhere is the human cost of this conflict more evident than in the lives of children. Born into a world of checkpoints and bomb shelters, they inherit a legacy of trauma and loss. Imagine a childhood where the rhythm of daily life is punctuated by the wail of sirens, where the threat of violence lingers like a spectre. For Palestinian children, the occupation casts a long shadow. They navigate a world of restrictions, their movements limited, their futures uncertain. The constant presence of military checkpoints, the separation walls snaking through their land. These are the stark realities of their everyday lives. On the Israeli side, children grow up with the constant fear of terrorism, their lives intertwined with the realities of conflict. They are taught to be vigilant, to see the world through the lens of security and suspicion. This cycle of fear and mistrust, passed down from one generation to the next, perpetuates the divide and steals the innocence of childhood. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict is not a regional issue, it is a global concern. The world watches, often with a mixture of despair and frustration, as the cycle of violence continues. International organizations issue condemnations, diplomats engage in shuttle diplomacy, yet a lasting solution remains elusive. The conflict has become a political football, with nations often prioritizing their strategic interests over the pursuit of peace. The result is a stalemate, a diplomatic quagmire that only deepens the suffering of those caught in the crossfire. The international community has a moral obligation to move beyond rhetoric and take concrete steps towards a just and lasting peace. This requires holding all parties accountable for their actions, addressing the root causes of the conflict, and working tirelessly to create an environment conducive to dialogue and reconciliation. The road to peace in the Holy Land is long and arduous, fraught with obstacles and setbacks due to the intrinsic foolishness and tribalism of our species. Yet, even in the darkest of times, hope flickers that the dear hamster will resurrect and again continue to turn the wheel. It resides in the hearts of ordinary Israelis and Palestinians who yearn for a different future, one where their children can grow up without fear, where coexistence is not a dream but a lived reality. Achieving this vision requires bold leadership, not just from politicians, but from within Israeli and Palestinian societies themselves. It demands a willingness to challenge entrenched narratives, to acknowledge past wrongs, and to embrace the principles of compromise and reconciliation. The international community must stand ready to support such efforts, providing not just financial assistance, but also the political will and diplomatic muscle to break the cycle of violence and create a just and lasting peace. For the sake of future generations, for the soul of Jerusalem, and for the conscience of humanity, let us choose the path of hope, the path of peace.